Hello and welcome to the Cyclone Insider Show. I am Travis Hines. He is the Eugene Rapay. We both work for the Des Moines Register. It's getting late. Eugene's in Jonesboro, Arkansas, where we may or may not be experiencing technical difficulties. So bear with us. But the headline here is Iowa State football is a winner in Jonesboro. Eugene was there to see it all. 24-16 Cyclones, now 4-0 on the year. Eugene, I think there's plenty to talk about here because the final score is one thing and how they got there was another. Like, frankly, pretty poor performance from start to finish from Iowa State. Ultimately, it doesn't matter for them getting the victory, but I don't think that was probably the most jovial bus ride back to Memphis to get back on the plane because just a lot went wrong. A lot of things within Iowa State's control went wrong. But having said that, like, the circumstances here sucked for Iowa State. Like, this is major trap game with the bye week lingering next week. So, I mean, I think my column's online already, but I'm curious what your thoughts on the day in large for Iowa State as you were there to witness it firsthand.
I think Iowa State should thank God or thank their stars and garters that it was Arkansas State and not a power conference opponent or someone who probably could have made them pay for their mistakes today. It felt like Iowa State was very sloppy on both sides of the ball, even special teams. And although it wasn't their best performance, they got the result they wanted and they stay undefeated, which is important. But they should just be thankful that it was Arkansas State today. And that I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's worth, like, the game plan even felt weird after seeing Arkansas State give up 600 plus yards, including over 300 on the ground to Arkansas last week. Iowa State didn't seem to be as committed to its running game as it usually does. Like, Carson Hansen ended up over 100, but it kind of felt like they went the hard way to get there. Abu Sama played well late, I thought. But, they opened the game with 3 straight passes. It seemed like, they went to the Wildcat 2 times in a row down by the goal line. It just felt like too cute by half, especially when you don't have Gabe Burkle in the passing game with a groin strain, it sounds like, from the tight end there. Like, just the whole day felt pretty weird in terms of the offensive game plan and execution from Iowa State. And then they just weren't crisp either offensively. I mean, it just was just not a great day. Let this here today, and I do think there's reason, like, this is going to linger into the bye week. I think a little bit of like, that was not a great performance from Iowa State, and I think, like, all around, it just felt like a weird sort of day for them.
Yeah, it wasn't great at all, especially when you look at Arkansas State. Like you mentioned, they just gave up 600 yards last week against Arkansas, but even against Southeast Missouri, they gave up, I want to say, when I was looking at it, probably about 300, 400 yards. So it felt like that they should have been able to finish drives. It also felt like when Iowa State had positive momentum, like the ground game was going or whatever it may be, they went away to it and maybe over-relied on, like you said, getting too cute, whether it was the Wildcat or passing the ball too much. Even at the end there, to come into the game, why did they pass it there? Why did Rocco Beck throw a deep ball when they could have just ran the clock out? I don't know. But it seemed like Iowa State got it done, which is the most important part. But, yeah, when you go into that bye week, there were definitely some eyebrows raised and just, what did we just watch performance after, just how good they looked the first 3 games.
Yeah, and I want to talk about that, but I'm guessing since it was a moot point, you didn't ask Rocco or Campbell about that last throw by Rocco, because that was a terrible throw and a terrible decision. Like, Kirsten Brown was completely smothered and covered on that play. Like, that should not have been thrown. Like, Rocco should have just ran out, and then you go and punt it. Run out the rest of the clock there. Like, my goodness, like, that was like better to be lucky than good, I think, in that situation.
I definitely had more questions to ask, but I guess I'm learning that on the road they're very chop when it comes to post-game availability, especially since I was like the only one there.
Especially when you're in Jonesboro and you got to bus back to Memphis
yeah,
on the plane. Like, they're always in a hurry no matter what, because they got places to be. But yeah, I would imagine in that situation, even more so. And I think like too, the defense, like that was as sloppy of tackling as we've seen from Iowa State, certainly this year. And I'm not even sure how far you'd have to go back to find as poor of a tackling performance from a John Haycock's defense as that. They just were not up to the task a lot of times tonight with their ability to just put a ball carrier on the ground. I think that was probably the most disappointing thing if you're an Iowa State defense. And then I guess on the flip side, you got to give Iowa State defenses credit for being able to keep Arkansas State out of the end zone on a couple of those possessions, because they probably should have had touchdowns. When you go 13, 15 yards or plays, like those usually end in touchdowns. Arkansas State had to settle for field goals, and that's a big reason why they lost today.
Yeah, and that's also where the skill gap or the talent gap really shows itself. I feel like if it was a higher caliber opponent, those higher caliber opponents would make Iowa State pay in those situations. And when you look at the defense too, it was even the stars or the quote unquote standouts were also getting cooked. I mean, you had Caleb Bacon get stiff armed to the face. Jeremiah Cooper, who had done pretty well at cornerback to date, he got baked a couple of times and gave up that big gain on on a big Arkansas State reception. So it was just a couple of uncharacteristic individual performances that also just led to an uncharacteristic showing overall by the defense. But like you said, I mean, they bent at times, but they didn't break, and that was a key thing. But that's where also I look at the talent gap. But I guess you also got to give Iowa State credit in that situation, especially when you're playing in a trap game. 112-degree on-field temperatures, like it wasn't a fun atmosphere out there for them.
Yeah, and that's sort of where I land, is that like they played poorly. There's no excusing that away or spinning that. They did not play well. They probably, like if they lost that game today, you'd say they deserve to lose, right? Like they earned that loss. I do think it's also worth acknowledging that the setup was about as against Iowa State as you could get. Like they were riding high. They were probably exhausted, 4,000 miles. I mean, we've talked about Ireland to death. Like everybody knows that. They handled that extremely well against South Dakota. They handled that extremely well against Iowa. I think there is a limit to how long you can carry that out. And I think we saw it today where there just was not a lot of pep in their step, a lot of fuel in their tank. And then you add in the logistics of this trip are weird. It's a group of 5 road game that nobody wants to be there on Iowa State's side. And then on top of it all, it's 112 degrees on the sideline. Like it's just not a good situation for a team to go out and play its best. Now you can say, who cares? It's still your job to go out and do your job. And I think that is absolutely a fair assessment there. But I do think like all of this doesn't happen in a vacuum, right? Like there's context to everything. And in that context, I think 2 things, and this is what I wrote. Be sure to check it out on DesMoinesRegister.com. I think all that things contextually are true, but I also think there's more to that context in terms of if you want to look at this glass half empty, Kansas State is bad. Like they lost, they barely beat North Dakota. They lose to an Army to Tarleton State. Then they lose to Arizona. You look at Chris Kleiman's quotes after that game, and they're like reassessing their entire program. So like that win, that was a top 20 win on a neutral field, a gutty performance. Like all of a sudden that doesn't look so great now, right? It doesn't look like this signature win. Then you have Iowa, who is a good Big Ten program, who, by the way, like passed for under 100 yards combined the first 2 weeks. It is like, so are we really thinking that Iowa State is this juggernaut in the Big 12? I don't know that anybody had gotten to that level of praise for Iowa State yet, but the hype probably had outrun the reality to this point. And I think both those things can be true, as well as none of that really matters. Like I still think this can be the best team in the Big 12. Now we just know that there is not unlimited potential, or that the trajectory just goes up and to the right. Like there's probably going to be some dips. There's probably going to be some ebbs and flows. And this team has got to continue to evolve. They're not going to be good enough to the team that they are on September 13th to win the Big 12 on December 6th. Like there's going to have to be growth and evolution, which, newsflash, is almost every team in the country. You have to grow and get better throughout the year to be that kind of, Power 4 conference champion. So I do think like this is a bit of a reality check, but only like not what Kansas State's going through. Like, does that make sense? This is like the nicest, most productive reality check you could have as a football program.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree with that. Just off the fact that doesn't matter what the level of play is. You look at just the history of sports, like even the most undefeated or like the perfect athlete or team out there, they have these off performances. No one is just steamrolling or playing perfectly in all three phases of a game for however many weeks straight. That's just not humanly possible. And for Iowa State, they should be thankful that they get this reality check, but on a win. Like if this was a loss, this would be feeling way worse. Everyone would have their arms up in the air, alarms possibly being punched. Who knows?
The sky is falling.
Exactly. But they won this game. You look at it like, oh, this was trap game circumstances. You look at also the context of the season, like we talked about 1,000 times. Like they come back from Ireland. You go from Ireland, Jonesboro. What a two contrasting locations. And they come out with a win here. And I think because they come out with a win and they have the bye next week, I'm not panicking just because Big 12 play will be on the horizon after the bye week. And I don't think they come slowly out of that.
Yeah, I think the biggest, among the things to be worried about or for them to have to figure out over the bye week is Kyle Conradi, the game-winning kicker in the Cyhawk game, the 63-yard kicker in the South Dakota game. Apparently suffered some sort of injury either today or multiple weeks ago that's been a lingering issue while he hit a 63-yarder and a 54-yard game winner. Campbell did not give you much information on that. Historically, Iowa State does not have press conferences on bye weeks. So like Campbell might get away with not having to talk about Kyle Conradi's health for 2 weeks. But I do think that's a big deal. Like, maybe they go for 2 when they score that touchdown at the end of the first half if Conradi's healthy, just to get up 7. But I kind of doubt it. Like, you're still in the first half. I think they're probably kicking that, which not a great sign there. But we'll see. But that is like, obviously, if Conradi is unavailable or limited, that's a huge development for an Iowa State team that thought or had learned that they had an incredible weapon there, not only from his ability to hit extreme length field goals, but to hit long field goals in clutch situations. So I think like that is maybe as big as anything coming out of this game.
Yeah, we talked about it at the end of the Iowa game last week when you just know that, or I shouldn't say no, but there's slightly less pressure on your offense knowing that we can advance to this certain yard line. And if we don't get a first down, we have Kyle Conradi that we could trot out and just make a long-range missile. We don't know what Chase Smith is capable of. I don't know if Iowa State is also aware of what Chase Smith is capable of, but it definitely changes kind of how you approach offense with Kyle Conradi out. And it's a real stinker that we have zero insight. Matt Campbell keeping it close to the chest, and he couldn't even name what the ailment or sickness or whatever it may be. We go from he's been dealing with it for a couple of weeks now, it's been lingering, to, I don't know what it is, and I don't want to comment until we exactly know what it is. So, like, what does that even mean? I don't know. Travis, probably because you've been around longer. Like, what does this mean?
Yeah, it means he don't want to tell you. Not going to, and you can't make him. I like the Gabe Burkle being out today, I think is obviously like you want to, if you're Iowa State, you want to see him get back and be healthy for Arizona. But the fact that he made the trip says to me that they were at least like holding out a little bit of hope that he could play. And now you get the bye week before Arizona, like hopefully for them, like that's not an issue, but certainly something to keep an eye on, especially like I am of the even bigger position today. Like we talked about it, I think on Thursday, like it's Bramer and Burkle are 1A and 1B. I mean, no Burkle today and pretty quiet Ben Bramer. Like, so is it Burkle is just the number one tight end? Like, I think independent of anything else, he's played well enough to just do that on his own. And then like Bramer not having a big game today makes me even wonder more, like, is he your top tight end? And not only your top tight end, but a huge weapon. So it would be a big deal if he's unavailable or limited for Arizona going forward. But I guess the evidence that we have would probably lower my concern about that becoming reality.
Yeah, and also I just felt like today flexed that tight end depth. Like we hear about the tight end depth, but you see Tyler Moore making a couple of big catches, Cooper Alexander also
good.
getting involved. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it was
More like
oh,
look like an athlete.
Yeah, he's not just a fullback. He's not a Steve O'Klotz. Like
Yeah.
this guy can also help out in the passing game as well.
Yeah, I was impressed with more like his ability to turn and get up the field and make a guy's miss and run away was pretty impressive. Yeah, so bye week followed by Arizona. I think the bye week obviously comes at a good time. Like I'm sure that team is gassed physically and emotionally, and could use a break. And to your point earlier, like going into this break at 4-0, is the chasm between 4-0 and 3-1 with this game is like miles wide. So this is Iowa State is in a good situation. And again, I don't know if they're the best team in the Big 12, but today did nothing. You know, if I was putting together tiers or power rankings, Iowa State is still right there near the top of the Big 12. And my thoughts on their ability to get to Arlington are in no way diminished today, but still not a great performance. I think, again, like today was evidence that like this team's got to show up in a big way every week. Like every Matt Campbell team does. Like, I mean, this team is not going to overwhelm you with talent. It's not going to overwhelm you with athleticism or speed. It's got to do its job. It's got to do its work meticulously and with precision and detail, to steal a Campbellism there. And today, the precision and detail was way short of the standard that it typically is at and where it needs to be at in order for Iowa State to win.
And Matt Campbell, using his ism, has also acknowledged that today, saying that the precision and detail was not up to par and not up to standard. Now, when he said that was the difference between a couple of plays, I was like, I don't know if that was just a couple of plays. It felt like it was a bigger problem today. But hey, they came out alive and they came out 4-0.
Yeah, and there were some bad penalties. And to me, the thing that stood out the most, we already talked about, is the tackling. Like it was not – that was the through line through the day defensively. Like the tackling was just sloppy. It was not precise. It was not intentional the way that we are used to seeing John Haycock's defense. But Iowa State's 4-0, going to be ranked in the top 15 tomorrow, I would imagine, as they were when they woke up today. So life is good for Iowa State fans in Ames, and it's all environs. We better call it quits here before Eugene gets kicked out of the press box in Jonesboro. Are you going to get kicked off live on air?
Yeah, getting ejected.
You're getting ejected. Hey, you've been kicked out of worse places. All right. For Eugene, I'm Travis. We work for the Des Moines Register. This has been the Cyclone Insider Show. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. We'll catch you next time.